Cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. This camera is crooked. That's a little better. Hello, everyone. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. If this is your first time catching one of these streams, we're here every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30 PST. Today, we're doing a Thai noodle dish called pad see ew. Pad see ew, if you're here in California, is one of the really common ones that you'll find in a lot of like Thai takeout, just like generally in most Thai restaurants in California, you'll probably find it. I think of it as very similar to a number of other Thai dishes that you'll find, most of which rely heavily on the use of what in Chinese cuisine we call chow fun, which is essentially a wide and thin rice noodle, or pad. You'll also see it in other dishes with things like pad ki mao, pad see ew, pad thai. All these things, they all use very similar noodles. You'll see them referred to in grocery stores as like different things, mostly because they're chopped in different ways, but they're all essentially the same thing. They also, by the way, if you're more familiar with Chinese cuisine, have very similar parallels to things that come up in Chinese food. So chow fun is what we refer to it in Chinese food, and it's obviously the thing that you use when you make beef chow fun, for example, or a number of other Chinese noodle dishes that you're probably very familiar with. So all of those things, they're using the same thing. They're also come up very commonly in Vietnamese cuisine as well. All have very similar parallels, mostly because at the end of the day, it's not that complicated of a concept. It's basically just rice flour that has been rolled into a noodle. So that's basically what it is. Shernikov, yes, it is live. Hello. Hello, everyone just tuning in. It is, in fact, live. I think if you're watching on Reddit, it might be like a minute delayed, something like that. Sometimes a little bit longer because I don't always see the chats right away because I'm not paying attention. But it is live, so when I fuck stuff up, you'll generally know when I fuck stuff up. So, and I fuck stuff up all the time. All right, so kicking things off, to start with, I'm starting off. This is 4 cloves of crushed and minced garlic. Oh, the recipes, by the way, I always forget. The recipes. Pretty much any time that you see a live stream, we're probably cooking something that I wrote a recipe for. This particular recipe came out over on my YouTube channel 3-4 months ago now. I forget how long ago. But if you're looking for those recipes, they always live over on the YouTube channel. Those recipes every Friday, so many Fridays ago we came out with the recipe for this particular pad see ew. And it was inspired by a pad see ew that you can find at a restaurant here in Oakland called Nicha Thai, which is a fun restaurant that I used to live across the street from. So I used to eat there a lot. I don't live there anymore. So, but it has one particular unique thing about it that you probably will come across a lot in American Thai cuisine, and that is that it's going to use. They like to use broccoli, so the American use of broccoli versus what you would more commonly find and more traditionally find in the pad see ew, which is the Chinese gailan, or like you can think of it as like a Chinese broccoli or something similar to that, something along those lines, which I have always had an aversion to, mostly because I used to eat it a lot when I was a kid. And I really dislike gailan. But if you're trying to make a very traditional or like stick to the textbook definition of what a pad see ew is, we're going to use American broccoli today. But if you want to stick to the textbook definition, go get some gailan. Lots of people love it. I don't. Cool. Courtney, do I know if they use butter in? Chat is blocked off. In fried rice in restaurants. That's a good question. I can't think of a good use for butter. Butter would be tricky for a number of reasons. I imagine there's likely some version of fried rice that uses butter. The main reason that I have never used butter in a wok fry is for the same reason that I don't use olive oil in most wok fries, is because butter burns at a very low temperature. Which means that if you're cooking in a wok and you're trying to cook on high heat, that you can't really use it for most contexts because it's going to start burning. So that obviously there's always going to be an exception to that. So I'm sure there is a use for butter in wok frying, especially in fried rices because there's eggs. So the thing that I can think of off the top is you might use it in the scrambled eggs. So when you're scrambling those eggs, you could throw some butter in and then you get a nice buttery egg. But I have never seen that though. I'm sure that there is a restaurant that does that though. I can't imagine what it would actually achieve in a wok fry though, other than burning. Because if your wok is hot enough, basically what's going to happen is that the same thing that happens if you've ever tried to make scrambled eggs with butter on a pan that's too hot. Basically what happens is the butter starts browning really quickly, and then what basically it will generally happen is it's going to pass the browning point and it's basically just going to start burning. And then it tastes like burnt butter, which is never good. Good question. But yeah, other than that though, I can't imagine why you would want to use butter in a fried rice, but I'm sure that there is somebody who has done it. All right. So kicking things off, that was 4 cloves of garlic, and then the last thing that I just chopped, an inch or about a tablespoon's worth of ginger. So if you're keeping track, this ginger is definitely one of the things that does not belong in a really traditional anything Thai, really. I rarely see the use of ginger in most Thai food, but I like it and I think it's going to taste really good. I also use ginger basically anywhere that I use garlic. I'll also use ginger because it's a really common thing to do in Chinese food. But if you're keeping track in a really traditional pad see ew, you probably won't see ginger. If anything, you might see the use of galangal root, but even then I don't necessarily think that those are even swaps. But I think it does taste really good, so I'm going to use it. Next up, so what I'm doing right now, these are some Thai chilies. If you are also keeping, once again, if you're keeping track, in a pad see ew, so there's another parallel dish called pad kimao, which is in the States more commonly found on the menus referred to as something like Thai drunken noodles or drunken noodles, something to that effect. Drunken soy sauce noodles, something like that. In the difference between those two dishes, I've always really confused me. What is the difference between pad see ew and pad kimao? And the main big difference is that in a pad kimao, you will probably see the use of Thai chilies, and probably also you would see the use of Thai basil. In a pad see ew, you generally don't find the use of Thai chilies, which means that essentially is that when you get pad see ew, it leans a little bit heavier into like sweeter flavors. So you're leaning a little bit heavier into the kecap mayonnaise or the dark soy sauce in our case today. I'm gonna go ahead and use these Thai chilies. The main reason that I'm using these Thai chilies is the same reason that I used them for the last 3 days, because they're about to go bad, so I want to use them up. By the way, your Thai chilies, if you want to find out or take a look, when they start going, that's a sign that your Thai chilies are starting to go. Basically what that means is that when you cut it open, inside it's a little bit black and brown, which is, it starts looking like bruised and just generally not something that you want to eat. So. Mariah, oh yeah, thank you, hello. Hope you're well as well. Thanks for watching the videos. Cool. Alright, so that's our aromatics. Next up, I'm going to dive into our broccoli here. So as you'll notice, this is not Gailan. This is pretty standard, straightforward American broccoli. The same stuff that you use in most American cooking. Today, what we're going to do, though, because trying to do is substitute out a Gailan. Gailan, if you're not familiar, is oftentimes you'll see something to the effect of Chinese broccoli or something like that. I honestly don't know why people call it Chinese broccoli, because it has no similarities to broccoli. I don't understand where that comes from, but that's what people call it. The difference, the big parallel or big problem that we need to traverse with substituting the broccoli right now is that it's for the same reason that you probably have come across any time that you cook broccoli like this in any other cuisine, is that broccoli is a really dense vegetable. So broccoli, if we threw it into a stir fry like this, which is probably how you would do it in many other cuisines, would be much too dense to try and cook all the way through in a simple stir fry. So that's the same reason why, generally speaking, when you see it used in like American contexts and in like casseroles and stuff, you'll probably see it par cooked to some extent. So you might see something like a blanch, it might be steamed. Sometimes you see it baked, stuff like that. Basically anything that has enough cook time to cook the broccoli all the way through, and then you get a nice like tender piece of broccoli that you can bite through. If you try and just cook it on a frying pan, just throw it into a frying pan and then try and cook it whole the way that I just mentioned. Basically what's going to happen is it's not going to cook all the way through, and then you're going to bite into a raw piece of broccoli. Generally speaking, when we're trying to use broccoli in a stir fry, and this is not just with Pepsi, this is actually true for any time that I use broccoli in a stir fry in a wok, is we want to try and cut them really thin, which is what I've been doing right this whole time that I've been talking. So generally speaking, this is a little bit of an exaggerated chop, but I'm chopping it very thin so the stalks are like tapered off really sharply, like so, and then we have these long and thin pieces of broccoli that we're looking for here. So we don't want big pieces like this. We have these big thick stems like this, these stems, because they're only going to be in the wok fry for about maybe 5 minutes at most. If you have big thick stems like that, that stuff is not going to cook through, and then you're going to be biting into a raw piece of broccoli, which is the reason why most people don't like broccoli, is because they bite into raw broccoli all the time. All right. Yeah, cool. White pepper in the marinade oh yeah. Yeah, white pepper in marinades is a game changer. I don't know why that's not a more commonly done thing. But yeah, also, Matt mentioned this, but also this just generally, if you've ever followed a Wu Can Cook recipe, and like, especially if you're like following a recipe where it seems like I didn't really know what to do with the marinade, there's two ingredients that are always in those marinades. The first one is always soy sauce, and the second one is almost always it's going to be a little bit of white pepper, like half a teaspoon or so. And that's because white pepper has this ability to sort of like permeate into meat really well. I think you might be able to achieve the same thing with black pepper if it's ground really fine. But I do think that like white pepper adds a little bit of extra something. I always assumed that white pepper, I used to say this too, I always assumed that white pepper has a little bit of MSG in it, but somebody pointed out to me that it actually does not, which now I'm not actually sure anymore. But I did always assume, because of the way that it tastes, and because of the way that it has just a very fragrant nature to it, almost like it has an umami quality to it. I guess it does have an umami quality to it. I always assumed that it had MSG in it, and that's just how that stuff is made, but apparently not. But yeah, if you're not putting white pepper in your meat marinades, it's going to be a game changer. You could even do it with tofu, any kind of protein. So like today I'm going to use it in some chicken thigh. On Tuesday we used it in some ground pork. Ground pork is really great use for white pepper. Really, any kind of protein is going to benefit from that stuff. You ever cut a jalapeno and then touch the meat? Yeah, horrific. Yeah. All right. So here's our broccoli. What I just did. So by the way, if you're not washing your produce, wash your produce. But especially this particular produce, this broccoli that I bought, came out of Chinatown. And Chinatown, while it does have a lot of really great, really fresh produce, that's what most Chinatown districts are known for. The big problem with that is that it's always sitting out. Lots of times, especially in the ones that here in Oakland, they're sitting out on the street, which means that everybody's touching it. It's super gross. And also, especially with produce, they're probably covered in dirt and stuff. So I like to wash it. I use a fruit wash to wash my produce. You don't have to. Lots of people swear by not washing their produce. But what's most important, though, is after you do wash it, or if at the very least rinse it, is that we want to shake out all of this water. So as I shake from this strainer, all of this water is coming out. That water is really important to get out, because if you don't shake it out now, once it gets into the wok, the water is going to go into the wok with the broccoli, and that's going to cause all kinds of problems. It's the first thing that it's going to do is it's going to drop the temperature of your wok really dramatically, and then you're going to have like medium-low heat, and then you're going to have to like, it's not the end of the world if that happens, but you're probably going to have to do a lot of extra work to try and get the wok hot again, which we don't want to have to deal with. It also is like just generally how you head down a path of getting into like mushy and like porridgey stir fries, which is never ideal for us. Yeah, the flash cook. Yeah, that's the big one. So that those are the one big thing that I love about that recipe, which if you're not making curries with a wok, you should get on that. That's a real game changer. Lots of people shy away from making curry with a wok because they're worried that they think mistakenly think that woks are used for high heat and only high heat cooking, but they're actually really useful for anything that's long cooked. So like long braises. Braises are really common in Chinese food, which means that woks are really good for it. And what I love about doing especially that white miso curry that Matt's referring to is that because you're doing it in the wok, you can do it in two sections. So the first section, we're flash cooking it, so just like any other stir fry, you're cooking it at very high heat for a very short amount of time. And then the second section is really useful because you can basically turn the fire down, set it to medium low heat, and then let it cook. Just let it long cook in that wok for a while. And it's really useful as long as you have a gas range. It only works with a gas range, but as long as you have that gas range and you have that consistent heat for a long duration of time, it works really well for braises. Yeah. All right. So next up, we're chopping up our chicken here. Lots of people ask when I chop chicken why I don't cut the fats off, which is all this white stuff going on here, all all this stuff. I know that that's like a thing that some people like to do. I actually think that kind of defeats the whole point of using chicken breast or chicken thigh, is because the whole reason that I like, at least the whole reason why I like to use chicken thigh, is because it is more fatty, which means that once it's stir fried, that fat enters into your stir fry too, which means it gives you a little bit of extra animal fat, which is nice. That said though, if you don't have chicken thigh, I don't think it makes a huge difference. You can absolutely just use chicken breast if you want. Or if you don't have chicken at all, you could use, I'm pretty sure I've done this with tofu. You could also use like pork, do a pork chop. You might even be able to do it with Angus steak, beef, all of those things will work just fine. But if you are using chicken thigh, I like to leave this fat on because it's going to give us a little bit of extra richness and fat to our stir fry as we cook. All right. Cool. Meat is death. All right. Yeah, but yeah, if you are a vegetarian or if you're avoiding meat, I have done this recipe many times with firm tofu, and it works really great. All right, so that's our chicken. Today we're using chicken thigh though. I'm gonna do, once again, Matt mentioned this earlier, but I'm gonna do a really quick marinade here. By the way, it's the same marinade that goes in a lot of other things because it's the one that I use when I can't think of anything else. So this is gonna be 4 tablespoons of soy sauce. Then next, this is going to be 2 tablespoons of Shaoxing wine. Shaoxing wine is a Chinese cooking wine. If you can't find it, you can also just use cooking sherry. That works really well too. And it generally just helps us get a little bit more tenderness in the meats when we use it in marinades. Next up, should be, I'm going to eyeball it, but we want about half a teaspoon of white pepper, which is what Matt was talking about earlier. And then last up, this is going to be another half teaspoon of cornstarch. The cornstarch, by the way, is going to help keep the chicken tender in the stir fry, which which is the same reason why it comes up in a lot of the different marinades that we use, because the cornstarch is basically going to coat the chicken in a little bit of extra starch. So as we cook, the chicken's cook time is going to slow down a little bit, which means that the exterior of our chicken is going to cook a little bit slower than the interior, so that it can kind of catch up and work around the fact that our wok is going to be a little bit underheated since we're cooking on a home range today. All right. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, oh, just in from the pub. Nice. Yeah, cast iron on electric ranges. I'm a big fan of cast iron on electric ranges. I think if you're cooking on an electric range, ideally cook on a gas range. Maybe that's not obvious, but there are definitely places in the world where gas ranges are illegal, at least in apartment complexes. Everywhere in Hawaii, for example, gas ranges are illegal, which means that at some point you're probably going to have to start cooking on a gas range or an electric range when you're cooking at home. So my go-to anytime that I'm cooking on an electric top or induction top has always been in a cast iron. I find that the heat retention of cast iron kind of works around the fact that we're in electric top ranges. Yeah. Am I a fan of MSG? Yeah. So lots of people ask me about MSG, and it is definitely true that you can't cook, especially in Chinese food, you can't cook anything Chinese without the use of MSG. But lots of people also ask me why they never see me put MSG as an ingredient directly into these stir fries that we cook. And the reason for that is because there's MSG in a lot of the things that I'm using right now. So, for example, the things that we're just using into this sauce right now, we just put, this is oyster sauce. It literally says here, you can even see it on the ingredient label. So there's definitely MSG in this oyster sauce. There's also MSG in this dark soy sauce that we used. There it is. Yeah, there's definitely MSG in the dark soy sauce. There's for sure MSG in Shaoxing wine. That's an additive. They throw MSG in. So you'll find, just especially in Chinese cooking, but also I think just generally in most Asian cooking too. Definitely in like Thai cooking, especially in Korean cooking too. You'll find the use of MSG in a lot of those ingredients already. So I tend to just not end up using MSG. I haven't used MSG as an independent ingredient in quite a while. Mostly because I just find that the things that I'm cooking don't seem to need it because they already have quite a bit of MSG. But that's not to say I don't like using it. The way that I always think of it is that if I find myself using MSG, it probably means that I messed up somewhere and that the dish needed something that I didn't add. So like the sauce or the element or the way that I assembled the recipe seems to be missing something. So it is a really great shortcut. When that happens, if I mess something up, I'll add a little bit of MSG, and that kind of does the trick for us. Yeah, soy sauce. Yeah, basically, if you think about like, especially if you think about Chinese food in general. So let's talk just about Chinese food, not even talking about other things like Korean food or Thai food or Japanese food, which also use MSG everywhere. But if you just think about like Chinese food and the things that are salty in Chinese food, so like not even salty even. So like soy sauce for sure has MSG as an additive. Hoisin sauce, oyster sauce, fish sauce, sambal olek, that's hot sauce that I just used, Shaoxing wine, all of these things have MSG in it. And sometimes they have a lot of MSG. Doubanjiang, another Chinese hot sauce, all of those things, you just flip it over and look on the back and you'll see it says monosodium glutamate on the back. Sometimes they're very, very high amounts of MSG even. So most of the time when I'm using those things, especially like right now, we just use a whole bunch of those things. I find that it doesn't really need MSG anymore because I've already included so much MSG in the things that I'm using. So, but that said, though, I do have like a small pack of MSG in my pantry that I keep on hand when I'm like feeling lazy or don't know what else to do. Just use a little pinch of MSG. and I'll do the trick for us. Yeah. All right, so next up, this is our eggs. Our sauce, by the way, I just finished throwing together. The sauce for the pad see ews is, by the way, the same dark soy sauce base that I use in a lot of recipes. So lots of times when you see me using dark soy sauce, I pair it with two other things that are also very commonly paired with in the use of dark soy sauce today. That would be our dark soy sauce, and then our oyster sauce, and our black vinegar. So lots of times you'll see me pairing these three things together, mostly because they help create that like really dark caramelly, like rich color and flavor to our stir fries. So it's something that I use in the pad see ew recipe. It's the same thing that I use in the pad ki mao recipe. I also use it in a lot of the like deep braising recipes. So like the lion's head meatball, that one definitely uses those big three. You'll see those three used in tangent quite a bit. Anytime that you see dark soy sauce come up, you'll probably see those big three used in tangent quite a bit. All right, next up, so this is the last thing that we're going to prep before we head to the stove. Last thing? Yeah, last thing. This is some fresh chow fun. So lots of people who have watched these streams before know that I have had a frustrating and love-hate relationship with fresh chow fun. And that is because fresh chow fun must be, by requirement when you cook with it, very, very fresh. If it's not super fresh, you're gonna have a real rough time getting it out of this shape. So right now you'll see it is like kind of sold and then stored in blocks like this. Getting it out of this shape is always going to be really tricky if you're using stale chow fun. So this chow fun already is looking a little bit stale, but I think we'll be okay. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm going through and pulling these noodles apart, which takes a little bit extra time. This is going to take you maybe an extra 5 minutes, but it's super, super important. You don't want to throw this whole brick of chow fun into your stir fry. Because depending on how fresh it is, it may or may not come apart. I have definitely had plenty of stir fries where I threw the whole brick in and it didn't come apart. And then we basically just had a whole brick of rice noodle. Do yourself a favor before it gets into break it apart. So we want to separate all of these noodles from each other so that they don't stick together when it gets into the wok fry. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, but also to that point though, if you are working with chow fun and it does start, you are having trouble getting it to pull. This one seems to be coming apart. Okay, I get to be fresher, but it's all right. It's not coming apart, like it's really not coming apart, especially so like for example, I have used day-old chow fun before. Yesterday I was cooking and I was feeling really lazy, so I pulled some chow fun out of the freezer and I used probably like 6-month-old chow fun. That didn't go super well. But also I knew it wasn't gonna go super well. But pop that stuff into the microwave for a minute and it will start loosening up a little bit, and it's gonna give you a little bit less struggle. It will still give you some trouble. So generally speaking, if you're using chow fun, try and find that stuff fresh. But if you can't find it fresh, microwave it. It helps a little bit. Hey, it's ham charo. That's ham charo, by the way, if you have not met ham charo. Ham charo is the hamster that eats ramen and only gets to eat when somebody feeds it, which is when somebody subscribes. So please subscribe on YouTube and feed ham charo. He's real hungry. Yeah. Over on YouTube, by the way, that's where all of the recipes live. So if you want to track down all of those recipe videos, that's a good place to start. It's also where this live stream behind me is going, and the other chat. So you've been hearing me talk to people that are not in the Reddit chat. That's where that's going. So we're working our way up to 6,000 subs by the end of December. So if you want to help us hit our subscriber goal, please hop over and subscribe. Lots of cool stuff coming. Vivid statement. What's the one dish that makes my mouth water? Oh, there's lots of dishes. I don't think there's just one. But there's lots of dishes. Ooh, I have to think about that. Yeah, I think like if there's one thing that I'll always order, it might not even be a stir fry. It might not even be a Chinese thing. But mapo tofu for sure. That's a big comfort food for me. Not always meat. I don't eat a lot of meat. I don't have to, so not always barbecue and meats and stuff, but definitely, yeah, definitely mapo tofu. That's a big comfort food for me. That's a good one. That's a good question. I'll have to think about it. There's too many. There's not just one. Well, your noodle dishes turn out kind of mushy. Yeah, so that could be from a couple of things. I don't think that you should just cook rice stir fries just because you can't get them to not be mushy. You should keep trying. But yeah, that could definitely be for a couple of reasons. I used to have that problem quite a bit, especially when I was chow fun, but also with like chow mein and lo mein and all those Chinese noodles that are really tough to work with. And the reason for that is, and probably the same reason that you are having trouble getting like non-mushy noodle-based stir fries, is because all of these noodles, especially chow fun, but also all of those Chinese noodles too, are really, really delicate. So the way that you cook the noodles is appropriate to the way how delicate those noodles are. So for chow fun, for example, we're going to run through a couple of the different things that I like to make sure to do when we're cooking with chow fun. Number one thing is we're doing right now, which is basically pulling the noodles apart. But also, once it's in the wok, there's a specific way that we want to approach the wok fry. Otherwise, you're going to end up with, again, a mushy stir fry. If you're using like Chinese noodles, so like lo mein or chow mein or stuff like that, there's also a very specific way that we want to approach cooking those noodles too, because they will overcook really quickly. So it's sort of like if you've cooked like Italian food and worked with handmade pasta or like fresh made pasta, the way you have to approach it is different from the way that you would approach like dry spaghetti or dry fettuccine, which is essentially because dry fettuccine or dry spaghetti is a lot less delicate. So we can throw that stuff, it's a lot more forgiving basically. So you can throw that stuff into a big pot of water and then let it cook for 10 minutes or so, and it will come out great. Whereas if you try to do that with fresh pasta, you're gonna have a lot more trouble. So it's very important when we work with those fresh noodles to know how to cook it and make sure that we don't overcook it. And that's something that I have done more times than I like to admit, probably in the dozens now. So yeah, for sure. Cool. Ooh, yeah. A wonton. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we should do that. That would be cool. Like a wonton, or we did a gyoza one pint. We also did like we did egg rolls once a while back. That was a long time ago though. We should maybe do egg rolls again. There's as far as live streams go, we haven't done it on live stream. The reason that I don't do those on live stream is not because I don't want to. It's because it would be really hard to stream it. Mostly because like it would involve like 20 minutes of explaining and like walking through some of these things, and then the rest of it would just be like literally just me folding dumplings for like 2 hours. So not super exciting to watch, but we did do those on live stream a few times, and they do exist as recipe videos in a number of on the channel in a number of videos. So they're on. If you find the YouTube channel, there's a video for there's egg rolls, there's lumpias. We did gyoza, we did pot stickers, and then we did handmade dumplings, which were really fun. We've done a bunch of different dumplings too. So there's shumai, there was a xiaolongbao, that one was really hard. Xiaolongbao is a Chinese soup dumpling, and then a couple other ones that I'm probably not thinking of. So we did xianbing, which is like a flat pot sticker. So there's definitely lots of dumplings. And then like for like, I saw you mentioned like filio pastry. So we also did a jiali jiao, which is a Chinese like curry puff, which doesn't use filio pastry, but it uses puff pastry, which is kind of similar to filio pastry. So there's all kinds of like pastry based and like dough based recipes over on the YouTube channel for sure. Yeah, 2 hours. Yeah, for sure. Cool. So that's our chow fun. This is a little bit drier and like a little bit more stale than I'd like it to be. And that's mostly because I got to the grocery store late today. I got there around 2. And you really need to get there around like 9, or else you get the bottom of the pile. I'm pretty sure that this is day old chow fun. So, but we're gonna make it work. So I just went through, we picked apart all these noodles. Ideally what we want to do is pull each of these strands apart. So these noodles, they're like a little bit stale, so they're not apart great. So you can see our noodle strands, these are about like, I don't know, like 6 inches or so long. What we really want to be doing is retaining that really, really long strand. So usually it'll be about like 12 to 16 inches long. And then we have these really big, nice, long, luxurious chow fun noodles. For some reason, I can't get them to hold together because they're too stale. So, but that will be okay. But what's really important, especially with fresh chow fun like this, is that once it gets into the wok, we're going to treat it really delicately, or else it's going to start coming apart. Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Wok recipes that make red and green Christmas meals. Ooh, that's a good question. Turn this up. Ooh, yeah. Red and green Christmas meals. I have to think about that. I don't think that I have one. That's mostly probably because I don't do a lot of baking. The thing that I can think of the best or the most would be the sweet custard buns, but they're not red and green though. You would have to work some food coloring in for sure. Let's see. So this would probably, that would be the one, this sweet custard bun would be the one that I think would be like the most adaptable. You would have to work in some food coloring in order to make it work though. It's also, by the way, the one thing that I have eaten for Christmas the most are the sweet custard buns. So. Cool. Yeah. Taking in all the tips. Yeah, cool. I'm glad that people are taking in tips. That's cool. That's how I learned how to cook too. All right, so over on the stove, we shouldn't be staring at chow fun anymore. Let's stare at the stove. Cool. Over on the stove, I've got my wok that's going to get heated up, and then we're going to get started on our chicken first. So for our stir fry today, we're going to do something that you generally won't see folks doing in restaurants, which is basically a batch cook. So the first thing that we're going to do is sear our chicken, and then I'm going to pull it out of the wok and then do our broccoli. And the reason that I'm going to do that batch cook is because there's a lot of things that are going into the stir fry today. And if we try and cook everything in the wok all at once, we're going to have an underheated wok. So to work around the fact that I'm not cooking in a wok burner right now, I'm going to cook things individually first and throw everything together at the very, very end. And that basically allows us to cook on really, really high heat for all of our stir fry. All right, so that was our reason today. I think that's grapeseed oil going in. And then first up, this is going to be our chicken going in. Our marinade, by the way, you want to keep in mind, has quite a bit of liquid in it because we used soy sauce, which means you want to take a step back when you add that chicken in, or else you're going to splash yourself with hot oil. All right, so I'm spreading this around our wok a little bit. If you're really committed, you could do this one piece at a time. I'm feeling lazy today and I don't feel like doing that, so I just dropped the whole thing in. But to that end, I am going to try and reproduce the same thing that we would do if we had put this one piece at a time in. And that's basically spreading things around the wok. So we want as much of the chicken as possible touching the surface of the wok, and that's going to allow us to get the best quality sear as possible here. Because the more chicken that's touching the surface of the wok, the more parts of the chicken are going to get seared. So in other words, conversely, everything that's not touching the surface of the wok is going to get steamed. So we want as much as possible. We don't want chicken sitting on top of it itself. We actually did a pretty good job, but we don't want pieces of chicken sitting on top of it. Otherwise, if it's sitting on top of chicken, it's just going to steam, and then we're going to have steamed chicken, pieces of chicken, which not the end of the world, but not what we're going for here. We want crispy pieces of chicken here. And then what we're going to do anytime that we're searing is we're going to leave that undisturbed for 2 minutes. Making you so hungry, yeah. That's the idea. I'm glad that you're hungry. So one other thing that I like to do, especially in this round bottom wok, is give the wok a rotation. So I like to give it a turn, and that's basically just moving the oil around. And the reason for that is because any part of the chicken that is touching the area of the wok that doesn't have oil in it, that's going to burn if it doesn't have enough lubrication. So we want to try and move that cooking oil around. This, by the way, is the one downside of cooking in a round bottom wok. Is that the oil doesn't move around, which means that when you try and sear something, there's parts that are not going to have oil touching it, which means that it could burn. If you've got a flat bottom skillet, like a stainless steel or a cast iron skillet, you can for this purpose it would definitely work better. I just don't like doing that because then I would have to clean another skillet. So here we are. Yeah. Cool. There we go. Whoop. Lost one. Saved it. The wok hay, by the way, that's totally optional and a lot easier to do in a wok burner or a commercial range. Wok hay is really hard to achieve on a home range because the burners don't spit up high enough, which means that it work a little bit harder to get the oil to touch. And essentially what a wok hay is literally translating to like the breath, dragon's breath, I think. Basically what we're doing is we're moving the wok in one direction closer to the flame, and that's essentially setting the fats and oils on fire pretty briefly, but long enough that it imparts like a smoky quality to things. If you're really good and if you've got a lot of oil in the wok, you could set it on fire for quite a while. I've actually done it for too long and have like singed like the overhead range. So I try not to do that. I've also, I think, at one point like melted this camera a little bit, which is not great. But yeah, so essentially what we're doing when we're going for that wok hay is just moving the wok to one side and then trying to catch that oil on fire. Again, really hard to do on a home range because the home range doesn't spit up high enough, but in commercial range it's a lot easier to do, or wok burners at least. All right. Doesn't want to go anymore. Alright, so I'm pulling out my chicken here for the rest of our chicken coming out. I'm going to set this aside and then we're going to move it back into the wok in a couple of minutes. I'm going to add a little bit more oil here, and then what we're going to do is let our wok heat, and then we're going to start cooking the remainder of our stir fry. And essentially what we're doing is that over the duration of time that we were just cooking that chicken, the wok has cooled down a substantial amount. So we're going to let it sit and then let it reheat a little bit. And then once it comes back up to temperature, we're going to cook the remainder of our stir fry. So that broccoli and the garlic, ginger, Thai chilies, all of those things are going to get into the wok. And that way we can cook all of those things on very, very high heat. Yeah. Cool. Hello, one more time to everyone just tuning in. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. If this is your first time tuning in, we're here every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30 PST. Today we're doing a recipe that came out over on the YouTube channel. Those are out every Friday, by the way. Today we're doing a recipe that came out on the channel a couple of months ago for a Thai noodle dish, Pad See Ew, which if you're here in the States, probably one that you've come across quite a bit because it's in a lot of like Thai takeout. But if you're looking for those recipes, they always live over on the YouTube channel. They're out every Friday. We're working our way up to 6,000 subs by the end of the month. So if you want to help us hit our subscriber goal, please go over and subscribe. Lots of cool stuff coming up. All right, so I'm doing one more wok here. Here's our oil going in. And give it a little bit of a swirl, and then we're starting off with our aromatics. So that's our garlic, followed by our ginger. And finally, here's our Thai chilies going in. Especially with regards to those Thai chilies, that as soon as you put those Thai chilies in, they're going to start kicking up a lot of capsaicin. So at this point, very, very important. Make sure those windows are open. If your windows are not open, that stuff is going to get into your lungs, and it's going to be really, really caustic, and you're going to start coughing real bad. Insightful observation. This is a great username. Any advice for new cooks? Yeah. Yeah, just like general advice, I think. Like, my favorite piece of general advice is just to not be afraid to fuck stuff up. Cooking is all about making mistakes. So lots of people get discouraged when they're cooking because it doesn't come out great, and then they kind of just give up because it's not working. But cooking is all about making lots of mistakes and then learning from those mistakes, because the best way to learn how to cook better is to make those mistakes. So, yeah, so that's my best advice, is that just start cooking. Cook on crappy skillets. Do it the wrong way. Do it poorly. Burn stuff. Cook poorly for as long as you want, and learn from it. Learn what you're doing wrong, and then correct. All right, so there's our broccoli going in. We're gonna let that cook for maybe 2-3 minutes. I kind of wish I didn't put the garlic in already. Like, here we are. That garlic is probably gonna burn, but it'll be all right. Yeah, but yeah, again, that broccoli is gonna take a little bit of time to cook through here. We're not gonna cook it all the way through because we don't want it to be like tooth tender, so we don't want like steamed broccoli here. We want it like crunchy broccoli, and that's going to be pretty similar to the way that you would come across gailan in a lot of stir fries. The reason for that being is because that's the quality of veggie that you'll come across in most wok fries. Is like not raw, but also not cooked all the way through, and that's basically like a flash cooked, very, very high heat for a very brief amount of time veggie. Yeah, 100% wish I didn't put that garlic in already, but here we are. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Just general advice is tough, but that's like the one biggest thing that I've learned from cooking, is that it's okay to fuck stuff up, because that's the best way to learn how to do things better. And even now, I've been cooking for a long time now, probably like 10-15 years, and I make mistakes all the time, and it's okay. All right, so there's our chicken going back into the wok. I'm giving that a little bit of a turn. Then finally, we're doing 2 last ingredients, and now this, by the way, because this is a recipe that has lots of people have attempted this recipe now, and the one thing that people tell me all the time is that they over season, like it's way too salty to the point that it might be inedible. So this, I think, is the step that I think most people mess up the most, and that's basically that what we want to do at this point, where we're going to add here's a little bit of chow fun, and then just a touch of sauce. So we're not going to drop all of that sauce in here. That's very, very important. We don't want to drop everything into the wok here, because if you drop all of that sauce in, and it's for whatever reason over seasoned, then you're gonna have a really, really over seasoned and really, really salty stir fry. So to make sure that we don't over season, we're adding these two things in a little bit at a time, then we're turning and adjusting. So if it's looking like we don't need all of the sauce in our wok fry, we're not gonna add all of it. So at this point, very, very important to use your own intuition. If it's looking like it's over seasoned, don't add everything because it probably doesn't need it all. And also, I like to add the chow fun a little bit at a time because it kind of helps make sure that we don't break it up into smaller pieces. So once again, I'm adding, that's the rest of our chow fun, but you'll notice there's still maybe like the last 20-30% of our sauce almost is still not in the stir fry, and it looks like we might not even need all of it either. And at this point, what I'm doing is I'm keeping my eye on the color and consistency of the stir fry, and in a second we're also going to taste it too. And again, super, super important. This is especially true with things that include dark soy sauce. So this is really true with pad see ew, pad ki mao, but also like the Mongolian beef recipe, the Shanghainese meatball recipe, all of those things. If it has dark soy sauce in it, you'll probably see me banging this on the head. Is that we want to start paying attention to how much sauce we're adding, and make sure that you don't add too much of it, because you can absolutely add too much of this stuff. All right, last up, that's our egg going in. I like to go around the sides here, and then just sort of like let the egg kind of set a little bit. And that's gonna give us this nice combination of like around the sides, we're gonna have nice egg curds, but as we start turning it into the noodles, it's also going to coat the noodles too. So nice middle ground. Yeah. At this point, by the way, we're not doing any real aggressive tossing anymore. So I'm just real gently sliding our spatula underneath the wok and turning. So we don't want to go in there and start shuffling things really aggressively because it could break up the chow fun. And what we're trying to do at this point is preserve the length, those long noodles, strands of noodle, and not break them apart. Otherwise you're going to have like loose and clumpy pieces of noodle. Yeah. All right, it's looking good. Let's check this out. Yeah, and add a little bit more. Dark soy sauce, again, is super concentrated, so the reason that I say that is because of how concentrated dark soy sauce is. Which means that you could add maybe 2 tablespoons too much and it would over-season your stir fry real quickly. They do make it suspicious, yes. That's great. It's a terrible fun that I love. All right. That's gonna do it, I think. Last up, and this is actually really especially true with a dish like this, is that real important, especially in carbon steel, to clean the wok while it's hot. So what I'm doing, I don't have a camera over the sink, but I just gave it a quick rinse. You'll notice that not everything came off. And the reason that I say that is especially important today is because anytime that you have something with egg in it, the egg is probably not going to come all the way off. But the best shot that it's going to have of coming off without having to do any serious scrubbing is going to be while it's hot. So while that wok is hot, everything should come right off. At the most that I'll generally ever do with this wok is a little bit of scraping. This generally anytime that I'm cooking with egg. And that ought to do it. So do yourself a favor, clean your pot, because once it cools down, it's going to be really annoying to clean, and a lot harder too. All right. That ought to do it. Nope. The camera's not on. Right, now. There we go. Alright. So once again, I'm going to keep harping on this because I see it's probably like the #1 mistake that people make when they follow the Woo Can Cook recipes. But of the sauce that we made, so we made, that was maybe like a cup's worth or so, we ended up a quarter cup, almost a quarter. It didn't get into the sauce base, or it didn't get into the stir fry. So that happens all the time for me. Kind of depends on like how much chow fun we're using, how large are the chicken thighs, like how much broccoli did I actually end up putting into the stir fry. All of these things, and just sometimes just how the weather, like how the wind is blowing, will change how much of that sauce is actually getting into the stir fry. So what I always remind folks is that when you're cooking, especially any Woo Can Cook recipe, but this is actually just generally true, start adjusting and don't dump everything in and like go crazy. Because you can absolutely ruin the dish at the very, very end like that, and it's something that I have absolutely done before. So, rinse it like it's hot. I was trying to think of the name of that song all day today. I don't know why I was trying to remember that, but thank you, because that has been something I've been trying to remember in my brain all day. It was basically like, what is the Snoop Dogg song where he clicks his tongue? And finally somebody told me. So thank you. How random. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, it's your first time catching the live stream. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that you caught the live stream. Yeah, too. Cool. Yeah, that's definitely like how to cook, was just like following recipes, and then just sort of like deviating when I didn't agree with what were happening. And like this, especially with like baking, this is how I learned how to bake too. It's just like follow the recipe, and then when you disagree, see what happens when you don't follow the recipe. And then lots of times, probably most of the time, there's a reason why it was happening in the recipe, and now you know. Like, now you know why you do that in a wok fry. Now you know why you batch cook, and now you know why not to put why you should sear chicken and stuff like that. That's how you find out, is by doing it. And cooking, I think is a great example of like the only way that you can learn how to cook. It's by cooking, and if you don't just start by starting, you're gonna have a lot of trouble actually learning anything. Black pepper, yeah, vivid statement, yeah, great question. So black pepper, I was actually, I think Matt was asking about that because he mentioned white pepper. And what I would do if I were to use black pepper in a recipe like this, I would add it at the marinade stage, but I would use like a finely ground black pepper, so probably like pre-ground pepper even, and like use something that's really, really finely ground, and I would say it would probably like come closest to incorporating in the way that pepper does. That said, I don't make a habit of using a pre-ground pepper for the specific reason that I find that it doesn't taste like anything. But that would be the point where I would use black pepper, is where we use the white pepper. Impastors. I am enjoying the puns. Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks everyone. Yeah, this is one of my ones. Imposters. Cool. Thanks everyone for tuning in. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. If this is your first time catching one of these streams, we're 6:30 PS. The new recipes out over every Friday over on the YouTube channel. So if you're watching on Reddit, the YouTube channel that's behind me, it's also the channel that's at the bottom of the screen. That's where our concurrent live stream lives, and it's also where all of the recipe videos live. So these short recipes, if you follow me from gift recipes, that's where all the music, so lots of people ask where the music is. So that's the music that's under my voiceover. Those beats, they come out every Wednesday. And then the long recipes, so the full-length recipes are out every Friday. So that's all over on the YouTube channel. So if you're looking for all of that content, there's three things that release every week. So check that stuff out. We're working our way up to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So if you want to help us hit our subscriber goal, please hop over and subscribe, I guess, by the end of the year. 6,000 by the end of the year, which would be crazy because that will be 6,000 subscribers this year. So definitely, if you're interested in that stuff, hop over to YouTube, check out what's going on over there. Friday, so tomorrow we're coming out with a recipe for, what are we doing tomorrow? Tomorrow we're doing wusu tofu, which is a Chinese braised tofu. We're gonna do some shallow fried firm tofu, and then in a long braise after that. Which is like an interesting variation on another recipe that I had done, which is called hongxiao tofu, which is a deep fried tofu, but otherwise outside of that fried method, it's pretty similar. So we're gonna do that. That's coming out tomorrow for the long recipe, and then this coming Tuesday following, we're gonna live stream that. So that's coming up all over on the YouTube channel. So lots of fun stuff coming up soon. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, definitely hop over, find out all of that stuff. Finally, by the way, lots of people have been asking about the music, so I finally remembered to update the playlist that plays at the end of the outro, which is why you probably notice under my voiceover there's different music that usually plays, because I finally remembered to update the music. So if you want to hear those beats, that's spinning right after I sign off too. So definitely stick around and listen to that stuff, because lots of cool stuff. Because I finally remembered to do it. So cool. All right, thanks everyone. I'll see you soon. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be here doing dishes and stuff, and probably eating too. So, all right, bye.
Tastes like strawberries on a summer evening, and it sounds just like a song. I want more berries and that summer feeling. It's so wonderful and warm. Breathe me in, breathe me out. I don't know if I could ever go without. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know if I could ever go without watermelon sugar high, watermelon sugar high, watermelon sugar high, watermelon sugar high, watermelon sugar. Strawberries on a summer evening, baby, you're the end of June. I want your belly and that summer feeling, getting washed away in you. Breathe me in, breathe me out. I don't know if I could ever go without watermelon sugar high, 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 watermelon sugar high. I just wanna taste ya, I just wanna taste ya, watermelon sugar high.
It bothers me and I'm feeling unhappy. I just try and think of nice things like nice things. Well, let me see. Nice things. Daffodils. Green meadows. Raindrops on roses. Whiskers on kittens. Cream-colored ponies and crisp apple strudels. Doorbells and sleigh bells and schnitzel with noodles. Wild geese that fly with the moon on their wings. These are a few of my favorite things. Girls in white dresses with blue
that you wanted to give me the world. And good for you, I guess that you've been working on yourself. I guess the therapist I found for you should really help. Now you can be a better man for your brand new girl. Well, good for you, you look happy and healthy. Not me, if you ever cared to ask. Good for you, you're doing great out there without me, baby. Gotta wish that I could do that. I've lost my mind, I've spent the night crying on the floor of my bedroom. But you're so unaffected, I really don't get it. But I guess good for you.
Smooth like butter, like a criminal undercover. Don't pop like trouble, breaking into your heart like that. Cool shade stunner, yeah, I owe it all to my mother. Hot like summer, yeah, I'm making you sweat like that. Ooh, when I look in the mirror, I'm not too hard to do. I got the superstar glow, so ooh, do the boogie. A side step right left to a smile in their eyes. If you feel like leaving, you know you can go. But why don't you stay?